Bradley, your mic is off. Sonia, can you let Brad know that his mic's off, please?
Hi, Bradley. I'm sorry to interrupt, but your mic's off.
Okay.
We can't hear you. I think you need to restart. Sorry.
Sonia Doi is currently occupying the positions of President of the U.S. Spiritist Medical Association and the International Spiritist Medical Association. She graduated in medicine from the University of Sao Paulo, Brazil, with a specialization in endocrinology. Please take this opportunity to send your questions during the presentation using the chat window. Sonia has reserved time to address your comments and questions once she concludes her presentations. So today, Sonia Doi will be leading our live with the theme Calamities under the light of Spiritism. Welcome, Sonia Doi.
Hi, Bradley. Thank you for the introduction. Thank all the organizers for inviting me to participate in this talk. And I'm very happy to be here and share this the ideas under Calamities. So thank you all for who are following this talk this morning. Let me go to the slides. Let's see why it's not moving now. Okay, yeah. All right, so we have been seeing images like this currently a lot. So through TV, through social media, and these afflict us. So there have been a lot of events like this that causes so much suffering and pain, and that we call calamities. So what do we understand by calamity? It's a sudden, violent event that causes great loss and destruction. So in times of deep pain, in times of so much destruction and suffering, most of us seek God, either to pray and ask for help, and I believe the majority, or to complain, revolting against God. Why this is happening? So it's important to review the concept of God so that we can understand better these events. And I would like to share with you, of course, the concept, the Spiritist concept of God. Kardec, in the Spiritist book, opens chapter 1 with the very first question, what is God? And the spirits responding to it respond with one single sentence. God is the supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things. But then during the discussion in this chapter, which I invite you all to read, the spirits tell us that the best way to understand God is by its attributes. God is eternal, immutable, immaterial, unique, infinitely good and just. But within this concept, people still raise questions. And some of the questions that we're going to discuss during this talk there. If God is the first cause of all things, is God the cause of destruction? If God is infinitely good, how can we explain these catastrophes that cause so much destruction and death? If God is infinitely just, why innocent people perish and suffer in massive disasters? So those questions are often raised during events like this. If we look back in history, we have seen, and science has shown, that since the formation of the planet, there have been successive natural disasters, revolutions, causing destruction, like volcanic eruptions, flooding, earthquakes, etc., that transformed the inhospitable environment into a suitable place for humankind to live. So God's acts are expressed through the universe by the divine laws, governed. All these occurrences, all these events are governed by the divine or natural laws. But what is the purpose of such events to happen? If we look into the Spirit's book, chapter 6 of the third part, it's about the law of destruction. And if I, again, would recommend it to read the whole chapter, because there's so much instruction and enlightenment in these questions and answers from the Spirit. And basically, questions 728 to 731, there's so much material there. But I'm kind of picking up important concepts that to discuss. So the spirits enlighten us that destruction is no more than transformations with the purpose of renewing and improving living beings. Of course, over incarnations is that we progress with our experiences. So in the destructions are the main purpose is to allow progress to happen. So the law of destruction and the law of progress are associated. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 3, there are many mentions in my Father's house. Under the subtitle, The Progress of Worlds, we learn that destruction is just a means to lead the humankind to perfection through transformation. So that's, again, the purpose of destruction is to lead us, to transform us, to push us into perfection. But at the same time that human beings progress morally, the worlds that we inhabit as humans progress materially. So the transformations occur at both sides. In the physical world and morally, these are connected, because as we become better, as we evolve, as we perfect, we deserve a better place to be, a better place to live. And again, nothing is idle in the universe. Everything is in movement, everything is progressing, is changing one way or another. That's the law. That's how God governs the universe. So, interestingly, in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 3 again, there are many mentions in my Father's house. The Spirit Saint Augustine tell us Earth has been morally and materially in a stage inferior to the current one. Earth has now reached another period of transformation and will change from a world of expiation to a world of regeneration. And we find also in chapter 18, entitled The Time Has Come, in the book Genesis, by Kardec again, with the chapter starts with this sentence: the time set by God has come, in which great events will occur for the regeneration of humankind. These are two statements from spirits. And I would like you to pay attention to the time when this was written. The St. Augustine message dates 1862. The book Genesis was published in 1868. More than 150 years ago. And the spirits are saying that the transformation, a new period of transformation for the planet Earth had already begun at that time. So are we at the cusp, at the top of the time of transformation? Have we reached that turning point? It's important to remember, and we can see this historically through geological studies, that these transformations do not occur in few years. It takes millions of years, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little longer, a little shorter, but it takes many, many years. So 150 years ago, still too short. It's very difficult to know how long we still have to wait, or how long will this transformation take until we reach a new phase of the planet Earth. At any event, it's important to know that this change will not occur in one day, in one specific time. You go to sleep and next day you wake up and it's a new world. It's not like that. Transformations occur gradually. Every day there are new things. Every day there are new transformations. And the surface of the planet, the structure of the planet changes, as well as our moral, as well our advancement as human beings. So I found this graph that was recently published, and it shows major events that occurred from 1900s to 2023, all the recorded events. And you show the red line at the top is a sum, is a conjoint number of all events that were considered here. And down to the bottom of the graph, you see all the events that were counted in this, when they did this search. And if you look, there are two occurrences to events that occur more frequently: flood and extreme weather. And these two have mostly contributed to the higher number of events that have been experienced more recently. So is this the announcement that a big event is going to come? We are approaching a big turning, a big change in the planet. Again, difficult to say. The important thing, when we see a graph like that, we say, oh my God, from 1900s to 2023, there's a big change in the number of events. However, it's very important when we analyze, when we interpret data like this, to look at the data limitations. Technology in 1900s is very different from the technology that we have right now. The reporting is very different, so we didn't have technology enough, sufficient enough to detect some events that today, that at this time can be detected. Same time reporting were not as efficient as it is today. So many smaller events were not even reported. So events that occurred in certain areas were not reported. Only major, massive events, of course, they cannot be dismissed. So it's important to look at data like this, but it's also important to have in mind all the data limitations before we interpret. These occurrences, these natural disasters that occur, many people look at it as a result of the damage that we are doing to the planet. Yes, we have our share. Many things that we as humans are doing, not caring enough to the planet, not really taking care of things, damaging the planet, can contribute to events like this. But it's important also to have a glimpse of the big picture. There are laws that govern the universe that we don't even understand yet. And here is just a small example that was, being brought by the media more recently, and is studied by NASA as a scientific event, that the Earth's axis is tilted currently at 23.5 degrees from the plane of the orbit of the Earth around the Sun. And the scientists have, by studies, have discovered that there are cycles of approximately 40,000 years that this tilt varies between 22.1 and 24.5 degrees. So it wobbles back and forth. Of course, the change in the Earth's axis change almost everything in terms of temperature, seasons, and so many things in the planet. Everything is influenced by the exposure to the sun, the way the Earth is turned to the sun. So we have to take that in consideration. Yeah, we have our share, but there are so many other events that contribute to these, what we call calamities, or the natural events. Now, Kardec asks a very pertinent and smart question within the chapter, The Law of Destruction. If destruction is necessary for the regeneration of beings, why do they have the self-preservation instinct? In one way, yeah, destruction, death is necessary so that we can be reborn, have new experiences. But why do we have preservation instinct, that we avoid death? And the answer is also very simple: to prevent destruction That's why before it's time. That's why we have the self-preservation instinct. If we die before time, this will cause a retardation in evolution. So everything, we have a time, like we have a time to be born, we have a time to die. We cannot, and that's why it's so important when we talk about prevention of suicide. We are giving a time to experience our life here, to improve ourselves through our experiences. If we go before time, we have to come back again to go again through the experiences. So the hardships, the spirits tell us that the hardships during these periods of transformation are often necessary to accelerate improvement, progress, and to accomplish in few years what would otherwise take centuries. Because we humans are, sometimes we need to be pushed. Otherwise, we stay idle, stay steady. Sometimes we need a push, and sometimes the only way to push us into transformation is pain. Of course, there are so many, and Kardec asks questions, this question, is there another way to improve, to progress, to make progress accelerate? Yes, but sometimes we as humans are kind of not accepting those things. So, for example, we know God has given us the concept of good and bad, has given us free will so that we can choose, make the right choice to go one way or another. And sometimes we make the wrong choices. We don't take the knowledge to make good choices and to improve ourselves. So sometimes pain is the only way that we are pushed against transformation, unfortunately. So yes, there is destruction, there's death, and this is necessary, but we still suffer with death and with our brothers and sisters suffering in pain. We, as spectators, we also suffer, and we suffer a lot. Or if we have a loved one involved in these tragedies and dying, we suffer. And we have to be reminded, and that's what the spirits do in this chapter again, to remind us that the essential part is not the physical body, but is the indestructible intelligent principle, which is the spirit. The spirit does not die, does not perish. What perishes is the body, which is just a shell to the spirit during this incarnation. So it's very important because many people say, "Oh, I lost a person." We don't lose anyone. And the other question that comes very often: is it just that good people, morally evolved people succumb in these calamities along with the wicked ones? And again, the spirits come to enlighten us. There are no victims. Whether death results from a calamity or an ordinary cause, we cannot escape it when our time is come. So it doesn't matter if we died in a tragedy like this, or if we died following an injury or following a disease. When our time comes, that's the time that we are supposed to go, that was planned for us here. So if a person dies in these tragedies, it was the time. The cause of death is just something that has to do with our planning before we incarnated. So in another life, the Spirit says, those that we call victims will find ample compensation for their sufferings if they endure them without complaining. So, of course, when a person dies during an event like this tragically and does not even have time to complain, that doesn't apply. But many times a person is suffering because lost everything that they had, like in floodings, like in wildfires, in earthquakes, tornadoes. They lose all their properties, they lose their job. So in those cases, people can take it in with resignation, or by complaining. And if they are complaining, they are losing the learning opportunity, they are losing the resignation part. So that's why the Spirit says, if you endure that without complaining against God, then you find ample compensation for their suffering. Meaning, that is done here, we will rise to a better level. In chapter 5 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, the chapter of Blessed are the Afflicted, there's a message under the loss of loved ones, premature deaths by the Spirit Sanson. And in this message, the Spirit asks, why do you measure divine justice according to your own justice? So if we are asking, is it just that good people perish in these tragedies? We are doubting the justice of God. We are putting God at our level to the way we set justice. So the Spirit Sanson asks, why do you measure divine justice according to your own? Nothing is done without an intelligent purpose. Everything has a reason. And the intelligent purpose is to progress, at that we become better every day, is that the world that we live in becomes better every day with the transformations. So we usually, because we look at the very narrow window of one incarnation, one life, we see this is a big tragedy. We don't see the purpose, because to see the purpose, we need to look at eternity. We need to understand the divine laws. We need to understand God by its attributes as described by the Spirit in the first question of the Spirit's book. So Sanson says, those who die in youth are not victims of fatalism. And he's referring here to the question that sometimes comes when parents lose their child and they say, why my child? Why not me, who were older, who had already lived so much more than a child? And we usually complain and we see that as unjust because a younger person should not die so early without having the opportunities to live as an older one had. So the Spiritism says that there's no fatalism. Rather, God deemed it useful for them not to remain on earth any longer, not to remain living in this prison of incarnated body any longer. We understand that the soul lives better when free from its corporeal envelope. We understand that the body is like a prison, it's like an incarceration that the spirit is in during a period of incarnation. And then when you open the door that this spirit can leave the physical body, it's liberation. It's freedom from suffering, from the suffering that we are inflicted by having our body that feels pain, physical pain, that feels cold and heat and so many other things. So it's important that we understand. It's very difficult sometimes because we are here attached to this person, a loved one, and the person goes to the spirit world and it disappears from our physical eyes. So we have to understand this deeply. So we are not thinking that we lost someone, that we are, of course, we feel sadness, and it's natural because we are now not having the presence of that person anymore near us, the physical presence. But it's important that we are not so that we are not thinking that we would be better by holding that person within us. It's important that we see that the spirit in freedom, liberated from the physical body, is in a better condition. And it's important to think that if that person died, if that is the time, that was the time set by the planning, the incarnated planning set by God. In this book is, as far as I know, is not translated to English. So I put there the Portuguese name, Chico Xavier Pede Passagem, in chapter 3. It talks about collective discarnations. And the message is by Emmanuel. And that's why I wanted to bring this here. It's so important. When we return from earth to the spirit world, aware of our own responsibilities, we assess our past debts and ask for the necessary trials to redeem them properly. So we have a plan that we ourselves, in most cases, have set ourselves. Plans to redeem our debts of the past. We forget. Thank God we forget. But it's important to have that in mind. Everything is part of a planning. And those plannings most times were done by ourselves before we came to this last incarnation. So we are often reborn, committed to redemption in groups. And Emmanuel mentioned several examples there, but I just picked one. And he says, for example, invaders who crushed villages in the voluptuousness of plunder, of ransacking, returned to earth with different burdens, but committed it to joint disembodiment in natural disasters. So God, in its intelligence and wisdom, uses those events for groups of people who were committed by similar debts and who planned similar discarnations. And that's why we, in these events, we have these spirits come together. Chapter 3, the return from the corporeal to the spirit life, separation of the soul from the body. Kardec asks, is the separation of the soul from the body a painful process? Because many people suffer, thinking that how much this person is suffering during this event. And the spirits ask, this is not a painful event for the soul. Frequently, the body suffers more during life than at the moment of death. The soul itself feels nothing at death. The suffering that sometimes is experienced at the moment of death is pleasure for the spirit, because it sees itself at the end of its exile, sees itself liberated from that suffering, bodily suffering. The spirits bring us more enlightenment into that topic. Death is the destruction of the body, but not the perispirit or the spirit. So the spirit and the perispirit during the process of death separates from the body. The spirit goes with the perispirit, only the body is, what I would say, the body is destroyed. I'm sorry. So the spirit says, observation has shown that at the moment of death, the spirit's departure occurs gradually, as I said before, and time may vary according to the individual. So for those whose life has been materialistic and sensual, the separation takes much longer. For those who have lived a good moral life, a spiritual life, the separation is a little faster. But separation does not imply that there is any vitality remaining in the body, or any possibility that the body may return to life. Yes, the spirit at the moment of death is cut from the body's life. But if the body has still some vital fluid, some vitality for a few moments, that does not depend on the soul. So life is gone. Separation, though, is different. The spirit may become attracted to the body, attached to the body, because of its influence, because of the spirit has been so much materialistic so much sensual, so much depending on that body. So it's affinity to the body that holds the spirit near the body, and then the spirit may feel all the transformations of that the dying body, the decaying body is going through. So it's different, the separation and the real death. And coming to the end of our talk, can the definitive separation between soul and body occur before the complete cessation of organic life? And the spirits respond sometimes in the death agony. The soul has already left the body, which has nothing left in it except organic life. So the body may still have organic life, but sometimes the soul has already left. The individual no longer has any self-awareness, and yet a faint breath of life still remains in the body. So that little quantity of vital life, vitality, or vital fluid that remains in the body remains while the heart pumps blood into the body. But that doesn't mean that the spirit is linked and has all the awareness of what's going on. So many times, and that I think is a relief for us to think that during this tragic event, plane crashing or things that we have observed recently, we lose consciousness, and the spirit doesn't have the suffering that sometimes we think that they have gone through. So I would like to end with this. Calamities are trials that give humans an opportunity to exert their intelligence and to demonstrate patience and resignation before the will of God. At the same time, calamities enable humans to develop the sentiments of self-denial, self-detachment, and love for their neighbor. And we have seen this, how much events like this inspire people to go and help their brothers and sisters. So these calamities have a way to teach us in two ways. If you are a person that had gone through the calamities, we should exert patience and resignation before the will of God. If we are not involved in the calamity, we are like spectators. We are far from them or close but not involved. We are invited to exert self-denial, self-detachment, and go to help. And we have seen in many of these events how people are moved, and professionals of every sort goes to help, or people who just go to bring clothes, to provide food, to give consolation. But if we are not in place to travel, to go to the place to bring help in person, we can still help. And the way we can help is not pointing fingers. This happened because of this, because of that, because somebody didn't do what they have to do. This is the time to pray for them, to do something that can help And if we cannot do something with our hands, we can still do with our hearts. We can pray for them, for those involved, and for those who are maybe involved into causing the fatalities. So there's a lot to learn, and importantly is to have compassion in our hearts, always. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonia, for the insights and reflections you provided us today. Please stay with us for the Q&A session that will start shortly after a few announcements. There is a new virtual course, Introduction to Mediumship. It is a free virtual course for beginners from the U.S. Spiritist Federation, who is thrilled to invite individuals eager to explore the realm of spirit communication according to Spiritism. Check out the new course at https://learn.spiritist.us or scan the QR code on the flyer. And be certain to save the date for the 18th U.S. Spiritist Symposium on September 21st, 2024 in Boston, Massachusetts. The theme is Life Through the Lens of Immortality, Philosophy of Spiritism. There is continuing to be a podcast-like series, Psychology and Spirituality, A Bridge to a Better Life, based on the works by Joanna Angelis. A new episode appears every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It is available on YouTube and Spotify. The Spiritist app, Be My Hope, which is available now on the App Store or Google Play. This app offers uplifting content and a collection of videos, daily messages, and audio materials. Download it now. And on the screen, you'll note there is a QR code. If you want to help the USSF produce more publications and promote Spiritism to everyone, scan the QR code on screen for your donation. Now, let's start addressing the comments or questions from the audience. There is still time to send in yours. Perpnasco Arcava. Hi, Sonia. Great to listen to you. We can see the rays of solidarity, fraternity as positive sides of these localized tragedies, like the one in south of Brazil. But how do you envision the moral, spiritual gain of great destructive events, like the disappearance of Pompeii, or even whole civilization like Atlantida?
Good question, Yasko. It's good to have you there, and thank you for listening. Yes, the destructive events that make, for, as you mentioned, the disappearance of Pompeii or the whole civilization of Atlantida, all these are part of the good picture, the God's will. All these are part of the opportunities to be reborn and to progress. So civilizations, the whole civilizations are raised, like you mentioned Atlantida, but the spirits had then an opportunity to go together to a new experience, whether in this planet, whether in other planets, whether in the spirit world. They were, say, into a planning to follow. Some places like Pompeii or other civilizations that were kind of going out of the moral set, the what I would say, that went astray of the path to evolve into a better spirit, into a more evolved spirit. It's important that they also were given an opportunity to be reborn in with a different opportunity in a different environment. And when we go to the spirit world, as you know, there's always an opportunity to learn also, to be instructed, to review our planning. And then we have the opportunity to look back and see, oh my, how many things I did wrong, how many opportunities to learn, to do better I missed. And so that's how we should see the results of these tragedies. I
Thank,
hope I have answered your question.
thank you for that guidance, Sonia. And from the U.S. Spiritist Federation, do our thoughts affect calamities on this planet?
Our thoughts affect everything, I would say, because our thoughts are vibrational energies that travel everywhere. So our thoughts translate what we are, translate our sentiments, translate our moral evolvement. So if I'm not evolved enough, my thoughts are not going to be good thoughts, and I'm going to influence the environment, my microenvironment, the place where I am. And with that, I am influencing more people and more people. And that's how I may be a negative contribution to the world. And opposite to that, if I transform myself, become a little better every day, my thoughts are going to translate that goodness in my heart, compassion, and all that. I'm going to be vibrating in a higher level of energy, and that will contribute to a more peaceful world, will contribute to a better resonance with God's laws. So I think that's the way I can see that our thoughts affect not overall calamities itself, but overall world environment. And that's what I think the spirits are saying. If we're, not transforming ourselves in a good pace, God intervenes because we need to move. God wants us to progress, to be happy. So things that are occurring and that seem a tragedy now, it's for a good purpose. I could say that is similar to when you reprimand uh, your children for some bad acts. You reprimand because the purpose is good. So that's the way I think our thoughts can contribute.
Thank you for that, Sonia. From the United States Spiritist Federation, can we tune our senses to be more aware of changes which lead to improvement?
Yeah, the same way, I think, continuing with that thought that our thoughts, depending on how they're said, they can contribute one way or another. We can tune our senses to be more aware of changes for improvement. We can, and Spiritism helps us so much in that, because Spiritism, the whole philosophy behind it is to teach us to be good, to do good things, to love one another. And if we do that, we are turning our senses not to look only at ourselves, but to do better for so that we can help others, that we can help the environment, that we can help the world in a minimal way. I don't mean that we are, turning into big personalities to do big things, big changes. We don't need that. Little things that we do, just turning to examine ourselves and say, oh, I could be better tomorrow if I did that. I could, uh, and we learn so much about charity. In charity, the best charity is when we can help our brothers and sisters when they are in anguish, when they are suffering. Not much with material things, that helps too. But when we can help them with a word, help them by listening, help them by saying a prayer for them. And that's how we can be sensitive to the suffering of our brothers and sisters.
Thank you, Sonia. And from Daniel Santos, how does losing loved ones in a sudden and chaotic event, like a calamity, affect the grieving process compared to a more expected loss?
Good question, Daniel. It, when we when we have a person who is sick, chronically ill, especially, the process of liberation is long, usually. And the family starts to prepare themselves for that, as well as the person that's involved in the process, because we know that the detachment of the spirit is done gradually because the person has some time during that illness process to detach. So detachment is done gradually. And, and usually the family sees death in these occasions as, oh, it's good. They usually say the person now can rest. We know that resting is not the proper word, but usually is what we hear. The person now can rest. Anyways, is a more soothing, is a more calming process, usually. In events like tragedies, it's abrupt. You may have talked to that person a minute ago on the cell phone and suddenly something happened and the person is no longer there, no longer accessible. So that's a shock and is much more difficult to endure emotionally. So our first emotional reaction is that of despair, is that of agony, is that of why this happened so sudden. It's difficult, it's shocking. However, through Spiritism, when we have then time to recover from the shock, we start to rationalize. And reasoning brings us back into why this happened and what is the circumstance that that loved one is in now. And when we can rationalize, when we can bring reasoning into it, it makes a little better to understand. But in those cases, it's not usual that one gets, immediately, just because you're a spiritist and you learned all this, You say, oh yeah, it's happened. Oh yeah, I understand the reason. I understand why God did this. That's not how it happens, right? Because we are humans with emotions, and emotions runs high in these moments. So there's time to mourn, there's time to bring reasoning, to, you know, we have to allow ourselves to go through the pain. We have to allow ourselves to release the emotion, the sadness. But the good thing is, we are not turning against God and say, God did this to me, right?
Very helpful, Sonia. From Spiritism USA, what are some compassionate ways to offer support and consolation to someone who has lost loved ones in a recent disaster?
There's so many I would say compassion itself is the best word to use to bring support and consolation. Compassion means we put ourselves in that person's shoes. Uh, Usually, we don't know how intense is the pain. Only the one who is enduring the pain knows the intensity of that. We only have an idea, but it's important that we put ourselves in that situation and think how I would like to be helped in this moment. How, what would bring me consolation? So it's important to be aware of, sometimes we think that we can come to the person and tell them, well, tell everything we know from Spiritism. Body has died, but the person is still living. Persons, and sometimes we have to be aware that of what religion, what faith that person has. We cannot push concepts that the person is not accepting or the person does not know at that moment of pain. It's important to be there, be present, even if we only there hugging the person, holding their hand, saying nothing at all. Many times, silence is the best help. Many times, being silent means you are allowing the person to cry, to say whatever they want, or not to say anything. But you are there. The person feels that there is someone next to them. So, for each person, I think there's a different way to bring comfort and consolation. Some people like it, and sometimes they ask you, what do you think has happened? What do you think the spirit will, what is the situation of the spirit at this moment? So now, depending on what the person asks, we can offer more insights, we can offer some more knowledge that we have learned from Spiritism that makes sense for the person. But many times, just the presence, just offering a hand, offering the chance for the person to talk if they want to, or to cry, is the best one.
From the United States Spiritist Federation, how do we help our spirit to not absorb the emotions of a calamity or tragedy?
That's another difficult question because, we are impacted by these events. in the media, TV, newspaper, and the social media. It's bringing this back time and time again. And we're seeing this and people are talking about it. So, yeah, we get pulled into all the emotions that is involved in these tragedies. But we have to kind of um, put ourselves, put a like a fence, like a, you know, defend ourselves, not to be that involved so that we become depressed, so sad that you cannot sleep, so perturbed that you cannot work. That's not a good reaction to these things, because as we get allow all these bad emotions to raise, we are not we are now inoperative. You become so sad that you cannot even say a good word to console somebody. You are so depressed that you succumb together with all the people involved. So it's important that we put a defense into not to let ourselves to be pulled emotionally into these events. And that is just a question of being aware and and be practicing. So maybe one time you got so deeply involved, and then you start thinking, bring reason into play and say, hey, if I am like that, I cannot help anyone. So we need to be, yes, compassionate, feeling that how much that person is suffering, moved into, and now you move into the next step, which is how can I help? How can I help? And find a way that we can help. Each one of us may have be in a different situation. And as I said, if there's nothing you can do physically in being present or so, the least we can do, and we can always do, is to pray.
Here we have a message from Yasko Arakawa. Yes, thanks, Sonia, for your thoughts and answer, reminding the big picture we are inserted in as immortal spirits.
That's right, Yaska. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonia, and many thanks to everyone who watched today's Talk Live and those who have been following our weekly Spiritist Talk series. Next Saturday, June 29th, we will have the second episode of the U.S. Spiritist Movement in Action, an interview with Marcelo Neto, Andrea Marshall, and Teresa Ares from the Spiritist Federation of Florida. Sonia, before we close the live, would you please offer a prayer?
Certainly. So let's turn our minds to all those brothers and sisters involved in so much suffering, whether involved in tragedies, calamities, as we have talked about, or any other perturbation, any other type of suffering, suffering and pain, that we can offer our prayer, that we can ask our divine Master Jesus to involve them in light, to involve them in the warmth of his constellation. Shall we now, with our thoughts, involve the whole universe with our thoughts, our vibrations of peace, and most of all, of gratitude for all the goodness of our Creator that prepared all our experiences so that one day we can be perfect. And at the end of this talk, my deep gratitude to be incarnated at this time and for have experienced so much learning from Spiritism. May God enlighten us, allow us to learn from our experience, to give us strength to go through our trials. May God bless us all, and so be it.